This narrative is based on real testimonies preserved at Yad Vashem, the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, and Yale University's Archive of Survivor Accounts. Names have been changed. The events have not. In Auschwitz, 70% of the people who arrived by train died within the first 24 hours. Most never even knew where they were. This is the story of a family that did survive that first day, and what it cost them to do so. There is a sentence that several survivors, without ever knowing each other, wrote almost identically decades later when describing that first day. A sentence that says something about the human mind that no psychology textbook had anticipated. We will return to it at the end. The train has been moving for 3 days. Inside the freight car are 84 people. Moszek Goldberg knows this because he counted them on the first day, when there was still enough light to see. Now there is no light. There is smell of bodies, of urine, of fear that after 70 hours no longer smells like fear but something older, more animal, harder to name. Moszek is 42 years old. He owns a fabric shop in Krakow. He has a wife, Ruka, leaning against his right shoulder with her eyes open but not looking at anything. 2 children. Dawid, 17, standing by the wall of the wagon, and Hannah, 11, asleep on her mother's folded coat, the only person in the wagon who has truly managed to sleep. They were told they were going to a labor camp in the east. They were told they could bring 1 suitcase. They were told the journey would last 2 days. Moszek doesn't fully believe what they were told, but he also doesn't know what to believe instead. So he does what he has been doing for 3 days. He watches his family, counts the sounds outside, and waits. Thirst arrives before fear. On the second day, they no longer talk about anything else. Not about where they are going. Not about Germany. Only water. The bucket in the corner of the wagon was emptied during the first night. After that, some people began licking condensation from the metal walls before dawn. A young woman presses a damp cloth to a 4-year-old boy's lips. The boy stops crying for a few minutes, then starts again. By the 3rd day, almost no one has the strength to argue. Darkness inside the wagon changes the way people exist. Moszek stops recognizing faces. He only recognizes breathing, coughing, groans. The first person dies during the second night. An elderly man sitting near the door. Moszek doesn't know his name, only that for hours he had been breathing too fast. Then, at some point between night and dawn, the sound simply stops. The body remains seated against the wooden wall while the train keeps moving. No ceremony, no silence. The train continues. Hours later, a small child dies. Moszek hears the mother before he understands what has happened. That sound, low, broken, restrained so as not to frighten the others, will become one of the few things he remembers with absolute precision decades later. Dawid stops looking at people. He starts looking only at the floor. Hannah asks once, how much longer? Ruka strokes her hair and says, soon, but the word no longer means anything inside the wagon. Time there does not move like it does outside. It rots. The train stops in the early hours. For 20 minutes, nothing happens. 84 people hold their breath in different ways. Some pray. An elderly woman repeats a name. Someone not in the wagon, with the mechanical rhythm of someone who no longer realizes she is speaking. Then the doors open. Light hits before sound. White, artificial, brutal after 3 days of near total darkness. Moszek squints, and the first thing he sees is not the platform but silhouettes. Uniformed men, dogs, smoke in the cold air, floodlights aimed directly at the wagons. The sound arrives half a second later. Orders in German barking. The noise of 80 wagons opening simultaneously along a platform that seems endless. Raus! Raus! Schnell he helps Ruka stand. Dawid is already at the door. Hannah clings to her mother's coat with both hands. The platform of Auschwitz-Birkenau is roughly 500 meters long. That night, there are 14 trains. Moszek cannot see the end of the platform in either direction. Only a line of white light fading into locomotive smoke that mixes with another smell no one can yet identify, but which many will later describe with the same words: sweet, chemical, persistent. The SS order them to leave their suitcases on the platform. Inside Ruka's, her parents' photographs, documents, the children's clothes. An SS man approaches, repeats the order. Moszek lets go. The entire platform feels like a machine, not a chaotic machine, an efficient one. That is what unsettles Moszek the most. No one is shouting in rage. The SS move with mechanical precision among thousands of people. Some smoke, some checklists, some simply watch. Moszek steps down from the wagon and feels his legs shake for the first time in 3 days. Hanna looks around, trying to understand. She sees men in striped pajamas pushing carts. She sees smoke rising from industrial chimneys. She sees elderly women being shoved forward by guards. And she sees something else. No one is smiling. Not a single person on the entire platform has a normal expression. Even the prisoners working there move like people who have forgotten how to look directly at another human being. A very thin man in prisoner uniform passes Moszek carrying abandoned suitcases. For a second he lifts his eyes. Their gaze meets. Not hostility, not compassion. Something worse, recognition. As if the man already knows something he does not yet know. The selection takes less time than a single complete thought. An SS officer walks slowly along the line of deportees. He does not speak. He does not explain. He gestures minimally with his hand. Right, left, right, left. Those sent right live. Those sent left will die within hours in the gas chambers. But Moszek does not know this. What he sees is a line of people being divided by a man who does not look them in the eyes. The officer reaches his family. Moszek, right. Ruka. The officer looks at her a second longer than usual. Left. What happens inside Moszek's body in that exact moment is something he will describe differently every time he tries. His first thought is not terror. It is administrative. There is a mistake. I will explain there is a mistake. He takes a step forward. A guard blocks him with a ruffle before he can speak. Dawid, right. Hanna, left. Ruka holds Hanna's hand. A guard pushes them toward the left group before Moszek can even see his daughter's face. Moszek sees a man try to explain in German that he is a blacksmith. The officer does not respond. Left. A young woman tries to release her elderly mother's hand to join the workers' group. A guard violently pushes her back. Left. A boy who looks no older than 15 straightens his posture, lies about his age as a prisoner whispers advice. Right. Another, too frightened to lie, tells the truth. Left. Survival at Auschwitz did not depend only on strength or age. It also depended on understanding the system before the system understood you. And newcomers never had enough time. The moment lasts less than 5 seconds per person. But those 5 seconds divide entire families faster than the human mind can process. Moszek tries to turn to see Ruka and Hanna. He cannot. The columns move too quickly. And then something stranger happens. Bureaucratic normality. Prisoners record numbers. Others collect luggage. SS men talk among themselves while thousands are separated for death. As if this were an ordinary station. As if the greatest horror Moszek has ever seen were, to everyone else, simply a night shift. What comes next is remembered in fragments. Not because memory failed him, but because his brain was doing something trauma research would later describe as a survival response. Constructing an alternative narrative. The women are in another barrack. Tomorrow we will meet again. Hanna is with her mother. They are safe. This is temporary. As he walks with Dawid toward the men's section, Moszek does not think he has lost his wife and daughter forever. His mind builds it this way because the alternative, the truth, is something no human being has internal architecture to contain. This is not denial. It is survival. The erasure begins immediately. A prisoner shouts for them to form rows of 5. Another orders them to undress. Moszek has never undressed in front of strangers in his life. Now he does, surrounded by hundreds of men under industrial lights while armed guards watch. Shame lasts briefly. Cold replaces it. Clothes disappear into enormous piles. Coats, shoes, family photos hidden in pockets. All mixed together. All indistinguishable. They are led naked into another room. Men with electric machines are waiting. Within a minute, hair disappears. From the scalp, the body, the eyebrows. Moszek has never realized how much people are recognized by hair until he sees hundreds of men suddenly turned into strange, hollow versions of themselves. Then disinfectant. Then uniforms, not by size, not by name, just used clothing carrying the sweat of other people. Moszek receives shoes too large. Dawid receives shoes too small. Somewhere between losing his clothes, his hair, and the sound of his own name, Moszek feels something difficult to explain even to himself. Not only fear, reduction. As if each minute in Auschwitz is designed to turn a complex person, husband, father, shopkeeper, into something simpler, more manageable, more empty, closer to an object. What is most terrifying is not violence, it is speed. The first barrack smells of wet wood, bodies, disinfectant, 3-tier bunks with no mattresses, only wooden planks. More men than there is space for. Dawid does not ask about his mother. He does not ask about Hannah. Moszek does not speak either. At some point during the night, Dawid places his hand on his father's arm in the dark. Neither speaks. They stay like that for a while no one could measure. Outside, somewhere in the complex, there is a sound Moszek cannot identify. Mechanical, continuous, distant, like something working without rest in the dark. He does not ask what it is. His mind, still building its survival narrative, still protecting him from what it already somehow knows, simply files the sound away without a name. Near dawn, a scream rises from another part of the barrack. A man has woken disoriented. For a few seconds he thinks he is still at home, calls for his wife. Another prisoner orders him to be silent. Then silence returns. And it is that silence Moszek will remember most, not because it was real silence, but because it was full of things no one said. No one said where the left columns went. No one said what the smoke was, as if speaking certain truths made them more solid. For the first time since the journey began, Moszek feels something new. Not terror. Terror still requires hope to exist. What he feels is the slow, physical realization that the world before, the shop, the apartment, family dinners, Hannah's voice asking small, meaningless questions, may no longer exist anywhere at all. Morning in Auschwitz-Birkenau arrives with a whistle. 5 a.m. formation outside. Cold. The ground between barracks is mud, thick, dark, clinging to shoes. Moszek looks around for the first time in daylight. Barbed wire in every direction. Watchtowers. Industrial chimneys pouring smoke even at this hour. Hundreds of striped men standing in silence. Some so thin he cannot understand how they remain upright. And he understands, with a clarity he later describes as physical. Something that happens in the body before the mind that he has been building a lie for hours. There is no women's barrack where Ruka and Hannah are sleeping safely. There was no administrative respiration. The mechanical sound of the night was not ventilation. What happens inside him is not crying, not collapse. Something quieter, more permanent. As if a part of him, the part that had been husband and father in Krakow, detaches and remains in that mud forever. What remains standing is smaller, harder, more capable of surviving. He looks for Dawid, finds him 3 rows ahead. His son meets his gaze. Neither speaks, but both in that moment make the same silent decision. Had Moszek Goldberg survived Auschwitz, so did Dawid. After the war, Moszek wrote a 40-page testimony submitted to Yad Vashem in 1953. Dawid emigrated to Argentina. For decades, he avoided speaking about the train. His children remembered he could not tolerate traveling in enclosed compartments and always slept with the window slightly open, even in winter. Moszek, in contrast, spoke about the first day constantly, not because he wanted to remember it, but because he seemed obsessed with understanding one thing: how the human mind had managed to keep functioning there at all. At the end of his testimony, on the final page, almost as a marginal note, he wrote a sentence describing what he felt during those first hours. That same sentence, with slight variations, appears in the testimonies of at least 11 other survivors from different countries, different languages, different transfers, who never knew each other. A Czech professor who lost his entire family during selection. A Hungarian teenager who survived less than 8 months. 11 people who lived the same first day in different parts of the same camp, who wrote in different decades, who never coordinated their words, and all of them arrived at the same sentence. My mind protected me from the truth just long enough for me to keep moving. It is not a sentence about horror. It is a sentence about the architecture of human survival. about what the brain does, without being asked, when reality exceeds everything language can hold. Some say that should not be possible. Some say it explains everything. If this story stopped you, if at some point you put down whatever you were doing just to listen, then you already know why this channel exists. There are more stories like this one, stories that deserve to be told with the same care, the same honesty. If you want to be here when they arrive, subscribe and hit the bell, not to avoid missing a video, but to avoid missing what lives behind each one. And if this story left something in you, a question, a thought, something you're not sure how to name, write it in the comments. Some of the most important conversations about what it means to be human start exactly like that.